silence this week to start off. No music. No theme tune from Anthony. We're going to start off with silence because Anthony doesn't want to sing one because he's embarrassed.
It's because they all just sound awful. I can't.
Yeah, but that's it. That's the appeal of it, Anthony. That's the appeal of it. Next week, we are hoping to have something a little bit more professional sounding. Not that you don't sound professional, Anthony, because if everybody who's listening to this already knows you anyway, to be fair, but you are a professional, So I'm not taking that from you. Hello everybody and welcome to That Superhero Thing podcast where we discuss the latest superhero and comic book related movies and TV shows. I'm your host Nick and joining me as always is my co-host Anthony. Don't know what that was.
Who am I?
You can be whoever you want, Anthony. Hello. Well, this is the second time we've recorded this because the recording ballsed up before. So, yeah, we'll try and make it sound... Not the whole thing. We haven't recorded the whole thing. We only recorded the intro. But, yeah. So, as we said last time, which none of you know, is there's been quite a lot of news this week. So, we're going to go through the news, even though Anthony doesn't know what any of it is. We're going to go through the news, as usual, and then we're going to go through this week's episode of Wandavision. Pretty big episode of Wandavision this week. Lots to talk about. I was going to say, as we said, but they don't know. We've already said this. Me and Anthony, this is going to throw me for the first 5 minutes. Me and Anthony normally discuss the episode of WandaVision like Friday night on a Saturday, well before we record this. But we're recording this on Saturday, whereas we normally do it on a Sunday. So we are going in blind as to what each other's opinions are, theories are. So you know, it's Anthony's and my reactions to each other's ridiculous theories, I suppose, are real and genuine, whereas, you know, they always are, but, you know, it's a bit more sort of, you know, realistic this time. So I've just waffled. I'm trying to fill the gaps. So let's start with the news. So DC news this week. Quite a lot of DC news this week, which is weird because normally it's been quite quiet. But I suppose with Justice League coming up, you know, and it's only a couple of weeks away now. They've got to sort of...
It's all marketing, isn't it?
It is. It's all marketing. Even bad news is good news at the end of the day, isn't it? Because it gets people talking about it. So talking about bad news, Wonder Woman 1984, $200 million budget, and so far it's only made $159 million. And that budget doesn't include any marketing or anything like that. So it's well underperformed. Not a surprise. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Anthony, I know you went to the pictures. You went to the cinema to watch it because you told me 5 minutes ago. Go on, what did you say about the cinema?
So, I mean, when I went, there was probably about 12 people in the whole cinema. So,
yeah,
obviously, when you're looking at those figures, you have got to take that kind of thing into account. You know, a lot better had the timing been different, because, you know, it was cheesy as hell. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I mean, no, but it is. Yeah. But then the comic books are, though. It's your typical hands on your hips.
I didn't see this,
you
but
know, I've come to save the day, huzzah, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And to an extent, it really plays on that, which overkill. However, I loved Barbara the cheetah because it's not your... and she's played really well. And I've been sitting here trying to rack my brains to remember the actress's name, and I can't remember for the life of me. Kristen Wiig, that's it.
Kristen Wiig, that's it. I'm
watching clips of her on SNL, and I just
Kristen Wiig. But it's a different. Like you say, it's SNL. It's a different sort of role for her, isn't it? It's
and
not
that's what I mean.
It's not what you'd think she'd do.
No, not at all. So I was really impressed with how well she did. She surprised me a few times in the past with roles that she's played, to be fair, in things that she's done. But this was just another one I actually really thoroughly enjoyed her character's growth throughout the film. So if nothing else, watch it for that because it's good. I liked it.
Okay, I might give it a go before Justice League, which is only a couple of weeks away, so I need to squeeze that in. Talking to Justice League, there has been Justice League news this week, kind of. I think it was a stretch, but Vanity Fair earlier in the week reported that there's going to be a cameo in the film that will blow hardcore fans' minds. So everyone was thinking, wow, who's it going to be? Something we didn't mention last week was there was a bit of marketing came out. I think it was literally, I say marketing, there was like a kids sticker sheet for Justice League, because they're releasing toys and all that sort of marketing stuff. And on the sticker sheet there was a Green Lantern logo. So that was a bit of is Green Lantern going to show up in some form? And then with this cameo, I think everybody was thinking, wow, it's, you know, we're going to get Green Lantern at the end. So much so that Ryan Reynolds even had to go onto Twitter and deny that he's going to be in the film. I don't think anybody, to be fair, thought Ryan Reynolds was going to be back as the Green Lantern.
I mean,
thank God.
The stuff that Ryan Reynolds himself has said about being the Green Lantern, I can't ever see him even touching a script.
It was not going to happen, was it?
No.
But so he came out and denied that he was in. But I think he said something along the lines of, you know, the thought that somebody else is going to be the Green Lantern in the film will be brilliant. However, it's been reported by IO9 this week that they've got a source, and apparently the cameo is John Jones, who is the Martian Manhunter. It's obviously a pretty big member of the Justice League. The thing is, everybody already knew he was going to be in the film. But the surprise is that he's going to be in his superhero Martian Manhunter form rather than just as playing John Jones. I think there's a story been around for a while about it that at some point in the film, spoilers potentially here, but he's supposedly going to be pretending to be Martha Kent at some point because he can obviously disguise himself that way. So we already knew he was going to be in the movie, but yeah, it turned out again the pushing big news, but it's probably not a massive surprise. I think we all sort of expected him to be in it.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not as clued up on DC, so I have no idea.
He's a Martian man. You've not seen him? Well, there you go. So you wouldn't have even realised it was a big cameo. But again, I suppose, yeah, it did say hardcore fans is going to blow their minds, but how much of a shock or anything it's going to be to somebody who's not like hardcore into DC? I don't think they've started. We're digressing, obviously, clearly getting into the whole DC Marvel debate again, but it's not built up enough of a fan base movie wise to get people that involved. I was about to say, you know, they've not got the cult that Marvel have, and that would have led us really nicely into the next bit of news. But another picture of Joker has been released today. Not today, sorry, this week, which I have just sent over to Anthony for him to have a look at. I don't know. It's Jared Leto dressed as the Joker, dressed as Jesus. I don't know what to say. It's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen, to be fair. I don't know what he's thinking. But he likes to dress as Jesus, Jared Leto. There's loads of pictures of him dressed up like Jesus. There was a picture of him at the Met Gala with like a little crown on. Very, very Jesus-esque. He's a bit full of himself, isn't he? So, yeah, it's not a surprise. Whether we're going to see Jesus Joker in the movie, I hope not. But yeah,
it is a dream sequence, so anything can happen.
Oh, it's weird. Something that that we were talking last week. This is again properly going off the news. We're going to do this in the podcast. I apologize. But when we went over the trailer for it last week, and obviously he pops up at the end of the trailer, and he turns around and he does that little "we live in a society" thing that me and you don't get.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and he says Batman, and a few other people I've seen on Twitter, and there was a proper pause there, and it's like, I've got a feeling that in the film he's going to say Bruce rather than Batman, and I thought he was going to say it anyway in the trailer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a feeling. Sorry, digressed massively. More DC news. We've had some news about the Blue Beetle movie, which has apparently been greenlit. It's been reported this week by The Wrap that there's a director attached to it, a guy called Angel Manuel Soto, who directed a film called Charm City Kings. I've not seen it, but I've heard a few good things about it. Apparently, it's a bit of an independent-y type film, but I've heard people raving about it, which is good. Now, there's been a couple of different versions of Blue Beetle in the comics. The latest version is like a teenager called Jamie Reyes. So he's a Latino teenager. So it's like they're going for the Latino director, Latino cast, which is good because it's more diversity in films, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's nobody been sort of tied into the role yet, but again, people are sort of suggesting. You haven't watched Cobra Kai, have you?
No.
So there's one of the main characters, the character Miguel in Cobra Kai. The actor Sholo Mariduena, he's really good in that, and he'd be perfect for him, obviously. But that's what most fans are sort of thinking. And he's followed the director on Instagram this week, and they've followed each other. So It's probably gonna go down that route. And then last little bit of DC news. I say little bit. It's big news. Sort of snuck in this morning. I heard about it. Is that Warner Brothers are going to be rebooting Superman.
Yeah.
So we've clearly rebooting Batman with Robert Pattinson, and we're going to be rebooting Superman as well. So we're going to be getting J.J. Abrams, who is going to be producing the movie, which is a good sign. Go on. I know what you're going to ask. Go on, ask it.
But what is the point? Like at this stage,
that wasn't what I thought you were going to ask.
No, I know.
Play. It's a decent question.
If they're continuing with like The Flash and they're talking about Ben Affleck coming back for that, and all of those kind of things, why reboot now? Well,
it's gonna be. It's like I know they're saying reboot, but I would imagine that they're probably gonna go down the route of like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker and Robert Pattinson's Batman. It's not part of I think it's Elseworlds, is it they're calling it, or something like that, and it's like alternate versions. Now, whether they then come into play in the movies or in the main DCEU timeline with like Justice League and stuff like that, I don't know. But it's like we've said, but we've said this we're on episode 3, and it's the third time we've said it. Yeah. It's just a bit of a mess. I think they just need to sort of tie down where they want to go with it. But they could go, in the Flash, they could go down the route of just saying, right, it's multiverse. We have got a multiverse, and this is what this is how it's all going to sort of tie together. Which we'll touch on with the Marvel news as well, but. I would imagine that's how they're going to go.
I really like J.J. Abrams. I think he's fab. I love a lot of the stuff that he's done in the past. And he's got a very specific technique when he directs. Mm-hmm. And you can recognise it in most of his films. And I quite like the idea of that technique being used in a Superman film, because obviously with a lot of fly-in and things like that, there's certain ways that he uses the camera that would be really good for those type of scenes. I just hope it's not another origin story. I just hope it's not the beginning again.
It's probably gonna be, because I'm starting to get the impression this is why it's quite good that we haven't talked about this yet, because there was a bit of news saying the first bit of news was they're gonna reboot rebooting Superman, and then the second bit of news was that they've got a writer. So the writer is a guy called Ta-Nehisi Coates, who has been writing Black Panther comics for a little while, so he's going to be writing the script. Yeah. And apparently Warner Brothers are full on going down the route of they want a black Superman. So it is definitely going to... Well, you'd think it's going to be some sort of alternate reality. I mean, I think that's... I'm really interested to see a completely different take on Superman, so I'm really looking forward to that. They did go down that route in the comics with a black Kal-El, so he was called Calvin Ellis, I think he was, and he was president of the United States and he was Superman. So it's a very different story, clearly. Yeah. But which must mean we're going down the multiverse or Elseworlds routes. Yeah. But negative, I'd say, is we're going to get another origin story. We've got to, I think. But positive is that it's clearly going to be a different origin story. Yeah. I mean, not necessarily, but if they go down the Calvin Ellis route, it is a slightly different origin story. The guy becomes president, and Superman. So I think it'd be good. And I think when you get to this point where we've remade not the same film, but we've remade the same character in a film so many times, you've got two options. You can either go down the Spider-Man route, where it's everybody knows this guy's origin story, don't bother, and just put him in Civil War as Spider-Man, which is great. Yeah. Or if you're gonna go down the origin story route, give him just change it up, do something different with it. And that's why, I mean, when first thing I heard was we're rebooting Superman, and I just thought, oh, not again. Seriously, why are we going down this route again? And then when I heard that we're going down a different Superman path, it's much more interesting to me. Okay. So I think that'll be good to see. But quite a lot of DC news this week. Marvel news, tons of Marvel news as well. So first, Kevin Feige, as you like to call him, because you know personally, Kevin Feige rhymes with beige. He's done a few interviews this week. He was questioned about. He's questioned about loads of stuff, but probably one of the things that stood out to me was that he was asked about the Netflix properties with regards to Jessica Jones and the Punisher. Apparently, the rights reverting back to Marvel last week. He was quite coy on the subject as he always is, because that's why he's Kevin Feige, isn't he? He always sort of keeps it quite close to the chest. He said he's unsure exactly what contracts are running and where they are and all that sort of stuff. So he's sort of pretending that, or I say pretending, I assume pretending that he doesn't know what's going on. But he did say, he said, I think we probably could do it if we wanted to. In that they could bring those Netflix characters into the MCU. Now, whether that means the characters or the established characters in John Bernthal and Kristen Ritter and Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, we don't know. But I think it'd be interesting. I'd like them to go down the route of bringing those guys in. But as we said last week, it means we're going to get the guy who played Danny Rand back, and I've not heard good things.
Yeah. I think it'd just be like decision based on the time, and I think a lot of it's going to be based on, you know, I think they're doing it slow and they're doing it quite well in this point because they're going to hear what the fans want as well, and I think that like the fact that they take that into consideration is pretty good if they, you know, if they do look at it from that respect. I think that'd be a lot better.
I think the biggest tell as to how much to listen to the fans is going to be whether we get John Krasinski and Emily Blunt as Reed Richards, isn't it? That's the thing. I think that if that happens, then it's it. Then it's sort of like we've got sort of like free reign over it. Then we just sort of kick up enough fuss. But then look at the Snyder Cut. Look at that. You know, people kicked up a big enough fuss, and it happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. We also
by
had
the way,
some.
Sorry, before you say anything, the secrecy thing. Just while we're staying on that with Kevin, I'm not going to say his last name. Go on. Did you know that Tom Holland has apparently requested to view Black Widow on a number of occasions, and Marvel's
didn't
told
know
him,
this, no?
But Marvel's told him no.
He's surprised.
Not at all.
I wonder. I mean, we're going to go through the whole Spider-Man title thing in a minute, but a little bit of me is like, is he just a very? But then I've seen things where did you see that one where he came into the where he did the press conference after Infinity War? I think he'd done it. I don't know. I think it was the premiere.
I've seen.
I think it was the premiere.
I can't remember.
But he basically walked into this room and he thought, and it was full of fans. There were hundreds of fans in there.
Yeah.
And they were all about to go in and watch Infinity War. But Tom Holland thought that they'd
come
already
out.
seen it.
Yeah.
And he went in and went, "Don't worry, I am alive." And it was like, so I think Joe Russo grabbed him and was like, "They've not seen it yet," sort of thing. And it's so you know, perhaps it is real.
Well,
I think they're playing on it now.
He released a poster too early as well, didn't he, for Infinity War?
Yeah, but I thought.
And
I mean, I've
like
watched that, and I think that was staged.
I would have thought it was staged had he not done anything else. But since when he's done all these cock-ups, I genuinely think he wasn't supposed to. But
it's like when.
Sorry, go on.
You seen the bit where Mark Ruffalo? Did you know he Instagram, I think Facebook live streamed the first
by
15 minutes of Thor.
Yeah,
it's just so it does happen. And to be fair, there's interviews with him. I saw an interview with him before Infinity War. You know, and it was the promo for Infinity War, and he was with Don Cheadle, and he says we all die. Everyone dies at the end, and Don Cheadle's like, "Dude," and stuff like that, and it's like, "Ha, everyone dies at the end," and it's like, well, everybody dies at the end, sort of thing. So yeah, it does make you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Talking of people dying potentially, there have been some. This is speculation, so not spoilers. But there have been a load of stills released for Falcon and Winter Soldier because obviously we've only got a couple of weeks left before that comes out. Just I think they've released 10 stills. One of them's Sam pulling the shield out the tree. There's action shots with Bucky on a bike. There's a bit of a firefight with Sharon and the two main characters. And then there's one, which is probably the one that's got everybody talking, which I sent over to you straight away when I saw it. And it's a picture of Sam holding the shield in a black suit, not a suit like Falcon suit. We are talking like shirt and tie and a jacket and stuff like that. He's blatantly on his way to a funeral, and he's just sitting staring down at Cap's shield. Are they going to kill Cap?
I mean, he was about 120 when he came back.
I know, but I suppose it begs the question, like, what has he been in that? Has that old Cap been in the timeline the whole time? Had he travelled back here to just give him the shield, and then he's gone back to his own time? I don't know, but there's going to be some. Obviously, it's going to answer some big questions, hasn't it? Than Falcon and Winter Soldier about what did happen with Cap.
Yeah,
but it's going to be weird because I think with him being an old man, like old Cap, or old Steve Richards, let's say, I suppose there was always the potential for him to come back, like get another dose of serum and he comes back, you know, and he de-ages or something like that, or something Wanda could do potentially. But if he dies, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is weird with all the talk about Chris Evans potentially coming back for a part.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Do you know what though? The thing is, for all we know, it could be Peggy's funeral, and it's a conversation that they want to have again. Could be. About him taking the shield back. You know, there's all. Yeah, but there's
Peggy died. Peggy died in I thought you meant a flashback. Peggy died in Civil War.
Yeah, she did, didn't she?
Yeah. So I don't know. It could be. I mean, it could be anybody, couldn't it?
Yeah.
But it could be right at the end of it could be right at the end of the series, and it could be the new Cap that John Walker could be him. He could have died.
Yeah.
And now Sam's Cap, and he's got the shield and he's going to a funeral. Could be anything, but I think that's what most people are concerned about. Other news we had this week for Marvel. I was dead excited. Apparently, Big Hero 6 were coming to the MCU. I was buzzing off that. That was great. But it's been debunked. Apparently, Variety have got a source at Marvel, and they've come back and said that there's no talk. But they're not going to say they are they? So I suppose we can hope. It's not as weird as it sounds. They are Marvel characters. They're Marvel comic characters, and Disney got to them first. Very different, which I only found out this week in the comics. Yeah, Baymax isn't a big squishy robot thing. I think he is a robot, but I think from the pictures I've seen, he's some sort of like monster that goes in a robot suit. So it is very different. So I would imagine if they ever did bring them into it, because they could do, Doctor Strange multiverse and stuff like that, they could bring them in. I would imagine they'd probably go down the route of bringing the comic counterparts in rather than the squishy cell toys Baymax that they made. Probably the biggest news then this week from Marvel was the Spider-Man 3 title reveal. Very elaborate. Yeah. Were you keeping up with it all on Twitter and stuff like that, like the fake names?
Yeah, and I saw the working board. Where they had them all.
Yeah.
Like everything dotted on there.
Yeah, I know. So there's a lot on there. There's a lot, and there's a couple of bits to go through. But the way that they released it is I think it was like 11 o'clock. Well, obviously our time in the UK. But Tom Holland released Spider-Man Phone Home title shot as on Instagram. And then Jacob Batalon, who plays Ned, he released one about 5 minutes later that was Home Wrecker. And then everyone was watching Zendaya for hours. And then I think it was like 3 or 4 hours later, she released Home Slice. So I thought it was pretty clear after the second one that it clearly wasn't going to be Phone Home. But I think they had to release it quite quick, the second name, because people were thinking it's going to be called Phone Home. I did. When it got released, people reporting it, Comic Book Movie reporting it.
Yeah.
That it is this is the title, which I'm glad it wasn't.
There's now a theory about it's like each title does have an implication to an event within the film or something. Or
well, it could be the fact that the three Spider-Man could be that, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Because obviously the name, I'm sure everyone's heard it if they're listening to this, is No Way Home. So it's Spider-Man No Way Home. Now that could just be he's on the run and he's a fugitive and therefore he can't go home. But also it could be down. I would imagine it's going down the route of the multiverse. Yeah. But yeah, you could be right. You could find that each of those titles is relating to the three Spider-Men. But again, Tom Holland's been interviewed a couple of times this week. He's been promoting his new film Cherry that the Russo brothers directed.
Yeah.
But he's been interviewed and he is saying categorically that Tobey and Andrew Garfield are not in this film. He said they're not on set, they're not in the movie. He wishes they were. Again, he's clearly not going to say they were. But I think the way that he reveals things like we've just talked about, it would have been quite a good marketing way of doing it.
Yeah.
But again, the marketing around the name took far too long, in my opinion. People were just sitting around on Twitter waiting for it. I had time to do loads of stupid name mock-ups of the Spider-Man name, which are all on our Twitter, so people might have seen them there. But yeah, it took a little bit too long. But you mentioned the board as well. There's loads of, obviously there's names on there, loads of different names. Home Alone says like copyright issues and Home Sweet Home, all that sort of stuff. stay home, shouldn't be doing, hard pass. But the couple of the big things on there, which potentially, so the name Matt Murdock is on there.
Yeah.
In red lettering, and they are this week shooting the courtroom scenes, for the new Spider-Man film. So I think people are hoping that that's gonna tie into that, which would be great with as we talked about the Netflix properties earlier on. There's a flux capacitor on there from Back to the Future.
Oh yeah.
In the top right hand corner. So again, we've done the whole time travel thing. It could just be a reference to that, or again, it could be something that's going to happen. Time travel, multiverse travel could tie into this. And then there's loads of hexagons all over the board. There's loads of hexagons all over the board. So again, is that somehow tying into WandaVision? Don't know. We've got one episode of WandaVision left, and there's loads to talk about that, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think trying to cram Tom Holland into that as well, is. But again, it could the hexagons could be something to do with the multiverse, couldn't they? We might find out at the end of the season it's something to do with the multiverse. Talking about on a similar. There's two bits of news. Which one do we go first? Tiny bit of news first. Daisy Ridley's been interviewed this week. Who's obviously Rey from Star Wars. She'd love to play Spider-Woman in the MCU. I don't know. What do you think? Would you like to see her in the MCU? Did she stand out enough in Star Wars, or was it just bad scripts and direction?
I actually thought she was fab, because if you look at the first film, she was brilliant. And
she wasn't she?
I don't think she got worse. I think we just weren't happy with. So, and I think that bogged her down a little bit, and I think it's kind of got quashed in a way. So that I do think she was very good. Within her role. So I mean, and I'm again all for English actors. So if she can get a part, go for it. It's nice to see more UK people in Hollywood. So I'd be interested to see. I'd be happy with it.
I'd
especially
like to see.
Seeing as Tom Holland is also from the UK as well. Like
they've just done. They're doing there's another film that they filmed a couple of years ago, but it's been in sort of like development hell. It's Chaos Walking, I think it's called, and it's out anytime soon. It looks like it's a world where you can see people. Everyone can see people's thoughts. Yeah, they literally sort of materialize above their heads when they talk, but there's no women in this world, and Daisy Ridley just gets sort of dropped into it. So it's just like a bunch of men. It sounds like it could take a very dark turn, that film, but we'll see how that goes. But it'll be good to see, because I think my only experience of watching Daisy Ridley is Star Wars. Yeah, and you're right, the first one was great, but the second two were crap. But we'll see. I suppose we'll see what happens with that. Other bit of title news, or not title news, but a little bit of release date news. Disney have officially announced that the Loki series will be out on the 11th of June. That came like smack bang in the middle. It was easy to miss. Smack bang in the middle of all the what's the Spider-Man 3 title news going to be, and makes me wonder now, thinking about it, is that why we had such a big we're going to release the title, and then it didn't get released, and then they said they were going to, and it didn't? Because I think one of some of the big reporters, or the big people in the know on Twitter were saying, the Spider-Man title is going to get released in half an hour, and then like 3 or 4 hours went by and it still hadn't been released. So I wonder whether it was because they Disney were like, hang on, Sony, we're releasing we're going to announce the release date for Loki, and I think there's just been a bit of a mess up there. Yeah. But yeah, not long to wait till that. So that'll be good as well. Looking forward to that. What else? I get something else that Kevin Feige was asked. I probably should have said this earlier on, but Kevin Feige was asked about R-rated Marvel movies, and he said that there's no plans for any more R-rated Marvel movies after Deadpool 3. And I think a lot of people, like we talked about, one little bit of thing that we did talk about earlier on was that you'd think, well, I thought anyway, that the Blade reboot with Mahershala Ali would be rated R, or but you seem to think it's going to be a PG-13.
I'm sure I've read it somewhere that they said it was going to be PG-13, because I did.
I don't know how to feel about a PG-13 Blade, but I think we're only going off we're only going off what we've seen from like the Wesley Snipes versions, aren't we? As to
Yeah.
what it maybe should be. But I mean, it was part of it. I can remember watching the Spider-Man cartoon when I was little, and Blade was in that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be like ultra graphic or ultra violent. Last couple of little bits of news then. We had a tweet from Eric Kripke, who's the showrunner for The Boys, to show with a photo to show that season 3 of The Boys has started filming, which is exciting. You still need to catch up on the end of season 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, brilliant show. So looking forward to that. And he literally it was a statue of Homelander, and it was just a zoom in of his crotch, which just says it all for what The Boys is about. And then last little bit of news is Halo. I've heard this news loads of times before. We're getting a Halo TV series. Good games, good story. I don't even know where they're up to now. I think I sort of dipped out after number 3 because it all got a little bit too involved.
5?
Probably. No. Well, it was supposed to be out. It was supposed to be out at Christmas, wasn't it? With the Xbox One. We're not a gaming podcast, but it was supposed to be out with the Xbox Series X. I can't remember the name of it now. Series X. But it got delayed like a year because of development issues. But there's another new streaming service coming out, which is Paramount Plus. So Netflix is dead, isn't it? Because everyone's just releasing their own content.
Yeah.
So that's slated for 2022. And apparently it's got Pablo Schreiber has been cast as Master Chief, who is... Do you watch Orange is the New Black?
Yes.
Probably shouldn't admit to watching Orange is the New Black, but we have watched Orange is the New Black. Porn Stash?
Yes.
Stash?
Yeah,
he's going to be Master Chief, which is, again,
Okay.
surely we're going to be going down a Mandalorian vibe, aren't we? Because, the whole thing is that he doesn't take his helmet off.
Yeah.
So... Where I would imagine that we'll be going down that sort of route.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be interesting to see. So yeah, lots of news. We'll get quite deep into the podcast now. So only other bit of news, which is sort of news, not really a full review, because I said on Twitter that I would do, and it's new this week. They've just released this week the pilot episode, or episode 1 for the Superman and Lois series. It's another CW series. You've not watched it. I've watched the pilot. So I thought what I'll do is I'll just give you I'll give you a bit of a review. I'm not going to do a full breakdown like we do with Wandavision, but just a bit of a gist as to what it's about and what it's like. Have you watched any of the CW stuff? Are you into those seasons?
So I watched. Was Gotham CW?
Mm-mm.
No,
Gotham was separate. So CW, the CW stuff, it's getting that's getting like really detailed now.
It's got the
Flash.
That Batwoman?
Yeah, Batwoman. Batwoman's part of the CW
so
stuff.
I watched the Fair series, but then after series 1, she's quit, hasn't she? And let's be honest, it wasn't fantastic.
I didn't watch it, but I didn't hear good things. But I like the way that you've gone straight to Batwoman. Out of all the CW shows that you could have picked, you've got like Supergirl and the Flash and Green Arrow.
It's the only one I've watched.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
I haven't watched anything else. That's literally the only one.
I've watched a few. I watched the Flash. I did watch the Flash, and I tried to watch Green Arrow, but I think again it just became. I mean, the Flash was good. I think I watched the Flash for the first couple of seasons, and then they got deeper and deeper into it in a sense that they kept bringing out new spin-off shows. So they got I think Green Arrow was first, actually, to be fair. But so they're Green Arrow, the Flash, and they've got Supergirl, Black Lightning, which is Netflix. And I think in the US it's pretty straightforward because it all airs on the CW.
Yeah.
It's not like that in the UK.
It just gets overcomplicated, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's overcomplicated because there's so many shows and they're all sort of tying in together. But in the UK, I think we had Green Arrow and Supergirl and the Flash and Legends of Tomorrow on Sky One. And then we've got Black Lightning on Netflix, and then Batgirl is on E4, which is a completely different network, and they're running behind. So like when they do, because every season they do like a big team up episode, and I've watched a couple of them, but it just doesn't really
flow.
It doesn't really translate very well to the UK because different networks are picking up the different series. So that's been a bit of a nightmare. I had seen the new Superman in one of the crossovers that they did with Supergirl and the Flash, but it's a bit of a different different take on it in this one. So now we've got Tyler Hoechlin, who is from Teen Wolf, and obviously Superman and Supergirl. So he's playing Clark, and then it is Elizabeth Tulloch who's playing Lois. And basically this is just I think it's supposed to be the same Superman from the Flash series, but he's slightly different character in my opinion. Completely different suit. He's got this Anthony's got this massive muscle suit, and it's clearly not him. It's clearly not him. And at first, because when he first came out, because I thought when I was looking at it, I was like, he wasn't that big in Supergirl. He wasn't that sort of like muscly and buff and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's just packed on. He's got his own.
Does it make him look like Luther from Umbrella Academy?
Yeah, that's it. I've been racking my brain all week. I've been sitting here thinking, who does he look like? It's Luther from Umbrella Academy. But I thought at first, he's just put muscle on. He's just obviously packed on the pounds, in a good way. So, because he's got his own series now. But then when he's Clark, he's muscly. He's a muscly guy, but he's not anywhere near as big as Clark as he is in the Superman suit. And there's definitely a padded six pack in there as well. And it's just it looks good, but it's very you can just see it straight away. Yeah. Instantly it's like there's something not right there. His shoulders are huge. But so it's basically him. It's more of it's not your Henry Cavill, Zack Snyder Superman. It's a more sort of, not probably Smallville route, but it's classic wholesome Superman. There's a scene at the start of it, and it's like he tells you his story because we don't need an origin like we've already talked about. So he sort of breaks it down in 2 minutes as to where he's up to and how how he became Superman. And there's a shot, and it's got like a classic 50s comic style Superman suit. And he's really wholesome. It's like some kid in the street says, "I like your suit," and he's like, "Oh, thanks, my mum made it for me." And he flies off, and it's that style of Superman, really happy, positive, colourful Superman. And then it takes quite a dark turn quite quick. He's married to Lois. They've got 2 kids, so they've got twin boys, both 14. One of them looks to have some sort of superpowers. He's like, he's maybe not super strong, but he's like super athletic. He's like the best athlete in the city sort of thing. And then you've got the other twin, so that's Jonathan, and then you've got the other twin, Jordan, who has got social anxiety disorder and goes to parties and takes prescription meds and knows somebody who's tried to OD when she was 13, and it takes but it does quite well because it's got like that very sort of dark undertone to it, like grittiness to it, and there's I won't spoil it because we're not going into a massive detailed thing of it, but there's the banks there, they want the mortgage payments and all that sort of stuff, so it's very sort of gritty, down to earth, but it manages to keep the same happy, colourful Superman. He's not Captain America, but that type of thing. But there's a few twists in it. I say it, there are twists in it. Very quite obvious. It's your typical, you think one thing's happening and then at the end it's a twist and it's a different thing, but you can see it coming a mile off. Yeah. But yeah, it's good. I enjoyed it. I'll be watching episode 2. Whether it sort of takes, because you often find that new seasons, they come out and the first episode's quite is decent enough to watch, and it sort of hooks you with a bit of a cliffhanger at the end, and you want to watch episode 2, and then you get into episode 2 and it turns
just
into Freak of the Week. Doesn't nothing to do with that story, and we find out what happens at the first episode at the end of the last episode. So whether it goes down that route, I don't know. But so far, good. I'd watch it. I'll watch episode 2 and see how that goes. And obviously, if people listening, because I know we've got a few listeners. I don't think it's not out in the UK yet, but I know we've got a few people listening in the US. So by all means, if you want us to go into it in a bit more detail, let us know. I was going to say this. We're doing this podcast through Anchor, so you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to your podcast. But if you go to Anchor, you can actually leave us messages and voice messages there, and we can literally put you in the podcast if you want to leave us a message or ask us a question or anything like that. So that'd be really interesting as well. And obviously, if you want to let us know things like if you want us to go into the Superman and Lois season in a bit more detail, let us know, and we can pick that up every week. If no one's interested in it, I don't have to watch it then. we can just crack on with Wandavision and whatever happens the next week. So quite a bit of news again this week. Let's get into Wandavision. So again, we have not, before we go into a massive. Let's not go into massive detail yet. What did you think, Anthony? Good episode, filler episode, not so sure.
So first of all, I'm going to say it because I don't think we said it last week. Spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode yet, don't listen to this bit, because
if you care that much about WandaVision to be listening to our podcast, you've already watched it.
Yeah, I know. Well, so would I, but I just need to say it just in case. Okay. So
well done, Anthony. Aren't you nice? Not ruining it for people.
I do try.
Not ruining WandaVision for people. Go on.
So I loved the episode. I thought it was brilliant, but it didn't move the whole story forward. So not until the very end. But so in a way, yes, it was a filler, but it was an important filler, if that makes sense.
We needed to know. It answered the
a lot of the questions that we had
for 7 episodes. Yeah.
So I liked it. I also liked the fact that it went back to, it was a very random year, 1693 in Salem.
Yeah.
And for those who like cult classics and stuff, it's also the year that the Sanderson sisters from Hocus Pocus got hung as well. So,
was it really?
Yeah,
I did not pick up on that.
Yeah,
that's
because
how do you know that?
Because the film came out in 1993 and they'd been dead 300 years. Yeah. So it was 1693. So I just like that little nod of the timing and all that kind of stuff with the witches.
Yeah.
So it's a daft little thing, but that made me smile in itself.
Marvel,
the fact that it was 1693.
Full on.
But it's Disney as well, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. Of course.
So I don't know whether it was purpose or not. I don't know, but I quite enjoyed that little extra bit on there.
Must have been.
So,
but that's Salem, isn't it? So I mean, we're into it now. Let's get. You've taken us right to the start of the episode. So no, it's fine. It's good. It's good. You're good at this. It's like we're kind of getting a bit good at leading in and segues and stuff like that. We're experienced now. Episode 3. But yeah, so that that's where we start off. So we start off the episode in Salem, Massachusetts. I think it is, isn't it? And it's 1693. So the Sanderson sisters have just been hung about a week ago. But yeah, we start off. So it's. I mean, before we go into it in massive detail, this episode it is filler, like you said, but it's filling in. It's good filler. It's not sort of let's fill an episode worth of stuff. We've got loads of questions. We don't know what's happened, and it's just filling in the blanks. And it's answering most of the questions, I think, this episode from what we've had so far. There's still a few. I've been struggling for a ridiculous theory of the week. I've managed to get one, but I was sitting there thinking, this has pretty much answered everything, and there's not that much that could still happen, but it's raised a few questions as well. So we start off in Salem. We see Agatha, a de-aged Agatha, I think. They've done some CG on her because she looked really young, or is it just me?
I think so. I don't know for certain, but everything. It looked like they did the Julia Roberts soft light type thing on her. That's what it felt like. So it's not really de-aged her, but it's made her skin look kind of rejuvenated, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We're now a beauty podcast as well. We talk about like how to rejuvenate your skin and stuff like that. We've got everything in this podcast. Maybe well, she is worth it, mate. She is worth it. That's probably completely different brands. I've just completely crossed with Maybelline, but whatever you want. Maybe she's born with it. That's it. I've got it. I'll shut up now. But yeah, so we get that, and it looks like it's a witch trial. So it looks like they're trying her for being a witch, and they're gonna hang her for being a witch, but it very quickly turns out that they're all witches.
Yeah.
So it's not what we.
Well, I mean, we
expected.
saw that straight away because before they even ask her if she's a witch, she's bound with a spell rather than actually being tied up.
I didn't twig onto that.
Didn't
So
you see it?
I thought no, I didn't know she was. So I saw the spell on her hands.
Yeah.
But I thought that was her doing something.
No,
I
so
thought
she
that
was
was her
bound.
conjuring a spell.
She was bound in the blue, and then she kind of turns it purple and pulls away because she's obviously draining
She's
power.
taken her. Yeah.
So
Spoilers.
that's why it threw me at first, because they're asking her if she's a witch, and I was like, well, aren't they all witches? Or is it whole, are they actually Wiccans, where it's, the good kind versus the bad kind? So witches, kind of a bad word there. I don't know, but that's kind of the way it seemed to go, and I don't know whether that means that can be revisited in the future on kind of...
Well, the big characters, aren't they? There's the Salem 6 or the Salem 7 big characters in the comics. There's loads of them, like Nicholas Scratch that we mentioned last week. So that is hopefully something that'll be explored in a bit more detail. But their hair kids, I think, and obviously she is the kid here, isn't it? They're the elders, isn't it? And their mum, who we find out is there, but they are accusing her, and I think they've caught her, shall we say. They've said that she stole knowledge above her station and age, and she's practicing the darkest of magic. Now, but she seems quite, and then obviously she's trying to not to admit that she's done it, but I did wonder, has she stole it, or is she just more powerful than them, and they're scared of her, and they're trying to get rid of her because she's got this natural ability to have this power, or is she stealing it? But I think perhaps later in the episode it sort of implies that, well, obviously what she's looking to do with Wanda, but maybe she's gone down the route of stealing it. But she does say, she says, teach me, she says to her mum, teach me how to use it and stuff like that. They're clearly not having any of it, so they're trying to kill her. I assume they're trying to kill her or drain her power.
Well,
but I would go down
she
the
was
killing
at a
route.
stake, so it's the same kind of setup as a burning at the stake. So for me, that was the goal. They were doing it to kill her. Basically, it was an execution, but it backfires.
Yeah. So she ends up. I assume. Well, it looks like she's completely draining their power from them. Yeah. Instead, now digress to a degree. So I went on Twitter after this and I asked people, "Have you got any theories or anything like that?" And I had one of our Twitter followers, Carla, whose Twitter name is at Pinstripe Diva, and she came in and she's absolutely spot on here. I think it relates back to the animated advert where the kid becomes like skeletonized, like they did, and the shark says, take your magic. So she's taking your magic.
Oh
it's
God,
like she's taking I'm taking your magic, and she's basically turned them into a skeleton. And because the shark took your magic, their magic, that's left them skeletonized, and that's kind of like potentially a nod back. Or I wouldn't want to say it's a clue because there's no way you'd have got it. But that's probably coming back to that. So I thought that was quite clever. I didn't pick up on it at the time, but from Carla on Twitter, she brought it up, and at first I read it and I was like, kind of it resembles, and it was only when I went back and watched it again I was like, she's spot on there. That's got to be like linked. So well done Carla. So she kills all the other witches apart from Mum, and then something else so obviously Mum then tries to go, I think that's when she says teach me, and Mum seems to go like full power, raises off the floor, puts everything she's got into
she kind of gets a little crown.
I was wondering whether you pulled. I only picked up on that on the second watch.
She
gets the Scarlet. Like it's different, isn't it? But it's like full on. Like it looks like Scarlet Witch, or a similar style to Scarlet Witch's crown.
I'm wondering whether she's kind of like the Grand High Witch, the Supreme, something like that within that, and that's why the kind of magic crown appears at the same time. Because
to show that she's the most powerful one.
I think that's all it was for, really. I think that was just to process that she's actually a hell of a lot more powerful than
that
any of the
again
others.
that kind of is sort of drip fed to a degree in little things that are said and things that we see in the episode going forward, isn't it? So she kills the mum. Well, go on.
I was going to say it also relates back because we only found this bit out after we released the last podcast, and it was the book as well. I don't think we've talked about the book at all. So
I think we mentioned it in the last. I think we mentioned it in the last one.
We mentioned that it was there because we didn't really know. However, if you go back and look at one of the scenes in the library of Doctor Strange, you'll notice that there are very similar books up on the shelves, but there is one missing. So it kind of relates to the fact that it looks like she's probably been chasing the knowledge and the power for quite some time. And it would also be another good segue if this leads into Doctor Strange 2 as well.
Coming back for the book.
Yeah.
But is that not the book that Caecilius stole? In Doctor Strange 2?
I don't know.
It's good. It's good the fact that they all tie in, but you lose track, don't you?
Yeah, it does make you question and then trying to remember what's happened where and stuff. It gets.
Yeah. But yeah, potentially, that's a good way that it could lead in, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we finish there. We go back to the present, shall we say? Which is Agatha's basement, should we call it, or coven?
Dungeon.
I suppose. Dungeon, I like that. Dungeon, it's dark.
Yeah.
It's dark. It's scarier sounding. Let's go with that. So we go there and we're just basically catching up. So just a lot of discussion going on. She makes a comment on Wanda's accent, saying it's constantly changing, so
which made me absolutely howl. By the way,
I bet it did.
I was like, thank God somebody
else
has
brought somebody else. That was our pet. That's been our pet peeve for years with the MCU. The accent seemed to just disappear after Civil War. It was still in Civil War a little bit.
It's more the fact that it's taken till now to give like a real explanation as to why.
Yeah, but
even then we still don't quite have it.
No, but I get it, and I get why she's not got the accent in parts of WandaVision because she's doing the Dick Van Dyke show. Yeah, 100%. But I need to go and watch it back, but I'm 99.9% certain she did not have a Sokovian accent in Infinity War.
But what they're saying is that she was trained by Black Widow to fit in, and part of that fitting in was
yeah. But when she's talking I suppose.
But you'd think you'd drop out of it, like when you're comfortable with the other Avengers or something like that. Yeah, and there's just it's none of that. So I don't know, and that's just me one little pet peeve about it all. It's like I get it if she's on a mission or something like that, and again she's fitting into the surrounding areas. But if she's sat with the Avengers and stuff and having the conversations with them, then she should
just be yourself.
Be Sarkovian. Come on, bring it out.
Be Sokovian, yeah. Or Sarkovian. Either of them, yeah. One of them. Whatever you want, whatever you feel like. So
it's not real, doesn't matter.
It's not real. No, it's fine. You can be whatever you want. So they have a conversation there. Wanda tries to use her powers, but she's Agatha has got protection spells set up so that she can't use her powers. The runes, and she's got these runes. She points to the runes, and obviously this whole time we'll go into a bit more detail, but she's sort of mocking and taking the piss out of Wanda. It's like, oh, don't you know what all these magic things are? Because she's sort of annoyed that Wanda's got all this power and she hasn't got a clue what she's doing with it or how she's doing it. Now, the runes, I was going to do more research on this and I didn't get around to it, but we'll do it for next week. Or somebody, if they're listening, tell me what they are. Go on Twitter, go on Anchor or something like that. Tell us what these runes are. So one of them looked like two M's, which I think we're getting a bit late in the day now for Mephisto to pop up personally, but potentially it could go down that route. And then one of them looks kind of like a G. I think it's basically there's two runes. One of them's an M. One of them, in my opinion, looks like a G, and it's like a big circle with a line going down and a little circle. And I don't know where I recognise that symbol from, but I recognise that symbol from somewhere. And I don't know whether it's something to do with Guardians, which it probably isn't. I've just probably gone G in my head, but it reminds me of something, and I've definitely seen it before. So I'll do a bit more digging on it. But yeah, if you're on Facebook or on Twitter or anything like that, let us know if it is something that's already been popped up. But they're there anyway, and she's mocking her and saying, you don't know. Basically, she doesn't know the basics. She admits to fake Pietro or Fietro, as she says.
Yeah.
I'll be devastated if this isn't anything to do with it.
It's debunked that there was that whole link, hasn't it? Which was a bit...
It's clever, and it's a nod to the fans.
It is clever, and it's a little, like, kick at us to go, haha, what do you think? That kind of thing. But at the same time, I'm a bit like, oh.
I'll be gutted if it's not, if it's just some random... But again, not ridiculous theory, but question I've got at the end. But we'll wait till the end for my question about that, I suppose. But go on, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say about Monica, because obviously with her, I mean, I know that she's got a backstory, and in the comics she becomes what did you say, Photon or something?
Photon, Spectrum, Captain Marvel. Yeah, she's got a couple of different names.
Those kind of things. So I get that she gets the names and stuff like that, but that still could be the introduction to the mutants. We've talked about potentially the town becoming mutants.
Well, this is part of my which I don't think is a ridiculous theory, but I'm going to see what you think about things that happen in this episode, and see see what you think.
Do we think that the rabbit is not actually a rabbit and is?
Yeah. But it could either be Nicholas Scratch, so it could be her son, which is Nicholas Scratch, or it could just be I think in the comics she had a familiar, which is a black cat who could turn into a Black Panther. So it could just be a familiar, couldn't it? It could just be familiar, and again, it's a nod from the comics because the biggest thing
that was all I thought.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing in the comics is, or from what I understand from the comics anyway, is that she's not a bad guy in the comics, Agatha. She's a good guy. She teaches, and I wondered whether when she was, because she goes on, doesn't she, and she says like, she shows like a possession spell or an like Harry Potter Imperious curse or something like that, where she takes over the bug and then she transmutations turns it into the bird, and she's showing her these things, and she's like, you've not got a clue what I'm doing here, and it takes witches years and years of practice and learn this, and just to hold one tiny illusion spell. And you've got them running all over town, and you've done the whole town perfectly on autopilot. And I was thinking, is she gonna teach her? Is she gonna say, I'm gonna train you how to do this? At the moment, it still looks like she's going down the route of she's bad. To be fair, from what we can see, and I mean, rushing to that sort of, not spoiling because I said we've done a spoiler warning, but it's sort of, even through the whole episode, there's nothing in there. I mean, there's maybe one little thing in there that I'll point out later that maybe says that she's not completely bad, but they're definitely going for the Agatha's the baddie. Yeah, for the whole episode. What was I going to say now? Yeah, so that seems to be where they're going, and she's obviously, I think at this stage in the episode, we still don't know who's doing this. But Agatha seems to be under the impression that Wanda is doing all this, but Wanda's saying, I don't know what, it's not me, I didn't do it all, etc., etc. Yeah. And Agatha wants to figure out what's going on and how she's done it, so we start going flashbacks or reruns, real reruns, as she says, and then she pulls out a bit of Wanda's hair, doesn't she, and does a spell on it, and it opens a door, which is the same thing that Doctor Strange does to Thor in Thor Ragnarok. He pulls a piece of his hair out and he does a spell on the hair and it opens the door. Yes. And that's what takes them to Odin.
I'd forgotten about that.
I thought that was quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
So they go back. So the first stop is they go back to Sokovia and it made me feel really old because I was like, oh, we're in the 80s, because when you're kids it's 80s, isn't it, or something like that. And they've got Malcolm in the Middle DVDs and it's a DVD, and it's like, wow, I expected VHS, and that made me feel old. But yeah, so we go back.
Malcolm in the Middle was 90s anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, but it was the fact that
the
it's like,
introduction of DVDs was probably 98, 99, which would have been about right, because I think technically
she's only supposed to be young, isn't she?
Age. I think she's supposed to be about 30, isn't she? Maybe a little bit older. I think she's
supposed to be younger. I think, thinking about it, because when you think about it, in Civil War, I think they were supposed to be like late teens, like 18, 19, something like that. So they're probably only supposed to be, actual Wanda's probably only supposed to be like mid-20s, because the blip, she wasn't there for 5 years for the blip, was she? No. Because she got snapped away, so she's probably only supposed to be really young. That'll
just confuse the hell out of me.
Well, I've got stuff about the blip. I've got things about the blip because it comes up later. Yeah. But yeah, so we go back to Sokovia. We see. Oh, the first thing I noticed is the parents weren't the people from the adverts. I thought the parents were going to be the when we heard Mum. Yeah. I thought this is going to be the woman from the adverts, and Dad's going to be the dad from the adverts.
I mean, that would have been a good shout, to be fair.
Yeah, it's not them, so I was surprised about that. We see that we knew, that it's poor, it's a war-torn country, there's a war going on outside. Something that I saw on Twitter as well is that the mum does that Sokovian greeting that Vision does in episode 1 to Wanda. She comes up behind her and covers her eyes and says, "Guess who?" or something like that. And I thought that's a good little nod back. But yeah, so we're basically shown that, you know, it's life's hell outside, and the only sort of happiness that Wanda gets is by watching, you know, old US sitcoms, really. So she watches the Dick Van Dyke Show, and that's her idea of what happiness is, and obviously what life she wants. And then really quickly and abruptly we get a bang, and I didn't know what it was at first, but it does turn out it's the missile. So it's the Stark missile that hits their apartment.
Yeah.
And as she explains to Wanda, they sat and watched it for 2 days, but not to Wanda, sorry, to Agatha. But that's when she starts. Agatha sort of
she's theorizing as well, isn't she? And that's the
she
thing.
is, so yeah. And she puts it across as Little Witch protected. Little Witch managed to stop it, all that sort of stuff. And there is a bit where Wanda puts a hand out, and then
we
she gets
thought
sucked,
maybe
and that's when Agatha pulls her out.
Yeah,
and she explains to her that it's defective. And I thought at that stage, this is Agatha thinking she must be a witch because she doesn't know what's happened yet.
Yeah.
She must be a witch, and she's done something. But Wanda says no, you know, it's not. I'm not. It wasn't a witch. It was defective, etc. And then that's when we jump to the. I think she says she calls her baby witch, and she says, "Where'd you get the big guns?" So it's like, well, I can see that you've got some sort of power here, or I think you've got some sort of power here, but. Yeah. How do you get this level of power? Because clearly you've not got that much power. So we flash forward a bit to Strucker's labs, and this is where it all sort of goes off. So we see what we knew had happened anyway, I suppose, to a degree.
Yeah.
But we see the whole process. So we see Loki's staff. She explains that she volunteered for it because she wanted to change the world. And then the whole scene happens. So she's in there with the staff. The stone floats out of the staff, floats towards her. I don't think she touches it. I think it just breaks open and she sees the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
And then we see Scarlet Witch in full costume, which we've had peaks of the costume already, but it's not very detailed. There's been a picture released, hasn't there?
I was going to say, within the series, it's more the actual silhouette that we see rather than any kind of detail. But obviously we've had people brightening it up since to see what they can make out of it and stuff like that.
It looks brilliant, and I really hope at some point we see her in that. I'm not convinced we will in this series.
I'm not sure. I reckon we might in like Doctor Strange 2 or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it depends. I think I'll also be questioning sort of like where Wanda's going to get left at the end of this. Is she going to be good and she's all right now and she's figured it all out, or is she still going to be going a bit crazy and pissed off and annoyed and, you know, wrecking things? But I don't know. That's one of the, that can be one of our ridiculous theories. So that all happens. The light shines and then she drops. She drops the floor. The scientists come rushing in. And then they're watching. Now they seem to see the light, this massive flash of light come from the room that they're doing the experiments in. But when they watch the recording back, it's all cut out.
Yeah.
And one of the angles that they watch it from, the staff is still there intact before and after the cut. So that stone didn't leave.
Now,
or maybe it did. Maybe it did leave it, and it's shot back into the staff because it was in the staff in Civil War. Go on.
The way that is cut to her lying on the floor is the same as the way things have been cut out of the episode so far.
It is. Yeah,
so
it is, isn't it?
Is there something attached to her that has basically had some sort of control this whole time? You know, is there something more to it than just the whatever's happened in the last couple of months? Because again,
or is it just Wanda subconsciously done? Because she doesn't seem to know. I mean, right, obviously you've seen, everyone who's listening to it's seen it, but it is Wanda, and we find out it's Wanda at the end of the episode. But all through the whole series, she doesn't seem to have been. I don't think she knows she's done it.
Yeah,
I genuinely think until Agatha makes her relive it at the end of the episode, which we'll get to in a sec, I don't think she knows she's doing this. So you might just find that it is Wanda who's done that, and she's cut the TV, she's cut it on the recording, and it's just subconsciously she's done it because she's trying to hide because she's trying to hide it and she doesn't know she's done it and she doesn't know she's got the power to do that. It could be that because I don't think she's been consciously making all the edits and stuff like that. I think she's been getting annoyed and the power's been doing it.
But then now that we've seen so much more of the shows, my other thing is this could be something else and it's just gearing up for it 2 or 3 years down the line when another story comes out. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
because they've been that clever with it all. You know, if you go back to the whole Cap and traveling back through time and stuff, when he went back to visit, just because you mentioned it earlier on, when he went back to Peggy in the hospital and he saw that she was married, and he asked her, "Did she can I ask who he is or anything like that?" And she says no. And to me now, that's a whole.
Yeah, is it Steve?
It's because she knows it's him that she's been able to live her life out with and stuff like that. Now that's well before any of the other films came out where all the time travel stuff came into it and stuff like that. So if they have thought out this much, have they gone, let's put that in our back pocket for another time, and it's going to relate back to this in a few years when we can go, look, it was there all along kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't know whether
I think they've had a plan all along. Yeah. I think they've had a plan all along. I mean, if you go, and it's fan theories and stuff like that, but like going back, and I know we're digressing massively, but if you go back to Civil War, because I watched Civil War for the second time ever, like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I watched it. We watched it in the cinema together, and then I've not watched it all the way. I've not watched it from start to finish since that. I don't know why. I just never got. I've watched loads of the Marvel. You know, pretty much every Marvel film 10 times. You know, just sit and I'll watch it, but. Civil War is a great film, but it's a heavy film, and I don't think I've ever found myself in the mood to watch that heavier film. Or if I want to watch Marvel, I don't go to a heavy film. Do you know what I mean? It's for a bit of, it's a bit of like, I just want something, fun and easy and stuff like that. But if you go back to that and you look at the funeral scene, there is somebody carrying the coffin at the back of the coffin. So Steve's front right and back left. And it just looks like you only see the back of his head, but if you were to go back and tell me now that's Old Man Steve, you'd 100% believe it, because it just looks like the Old Man Steve that we see at the end of Endgame. And it could be that they've had it in the back pocket the whole time, because they plan these things out, and I know they have to make changes when things happen, like Chadwick Boseman dying and stuff like that, and rights issues. But I think they've got a plan, and they probably know what it's going to be, and they've known for 10 years where things are going to go in general.
It's mad, because I still believe that there's so many different things going on that it could potentially, we've talked about the fact that Agatha Harkness has never been bad in the comics, and then you look at the 1693 section of her, and she seems like she's really trying to push her innocence that she's not done this.
Yeah.
And when she starts to feel that she's got that power and stuff like that, she doesn't really do it in an evil way, if that makes sense. And she takes the brooch at the beginning, which she wears at the end. I don't know whether you noticed that she had that on.
Well, she's had it on. I think she's had it on a few times in the series. Yeah.
But for me, then the other thing that could come into this, and again, I know we're touching on Mephisto, and people are really trying to strain it. Is she his puppet? This is the other thing. She could be evil because she's doing his bidding at the moment. He could have full control over her to get this through, and that's why the things like the devil's in the details and all that kind of stuff. And it would also explain again with the actual cutting of the certain scenes and stuff like that throughout as well.
It could also be quite a clever way cinematically and storytelling wise in its mirroring Wanda, because it's with Wanda, she's been the one doing all this, but we've been led to believe that she wasn't doing it, and she doesn't think she's doing it. So we could have Agatha could be not doing all this, or all the things that we think she's doing, but she thinks she is, and we're being made to believe that she is. Yeah. And it's just like a parallel in the they're the same, not the same character, but they are just opposite. The parallels of each other. Yeah. And it's like complete polar opposites. So it could be. It could be that, couldn't it? Yeah. But okay, sound. So at the end of we digress massively there. So at the end of the whole Strucker Lab scene, Agatha makes a comment. She knows it's an Infinity Stone, which to me was like, okay, so she knows what the Infinity Stones are. She's aware of them, and again, she sort of says what we just said about the first flashback scene. She said that the power of the Infinity Stone amplified what would have died in the vine. So she's saying that you already had the powers, and what it's done is, rather than it being them fading out as you got older, it's amplified those powers, and that's what's made you powerful. But then there's still more information that she wants, so as to maybe why, she now knows how she's got the power, but how and why has she done what she's done with Westview. So we jump again and we go to the Avengers compound, which again is similar to what we've seen there before, similar to what we see in Civil War, and quite a deep conversation goes on at this point. So they're watching Malcolm in the Middle, the deep conversation between her and Vision, and she's pretty much saying that she wants to see Pietro again, and the only thing that'll comfort her will be seeing.
Do you know what?
Seeing him again.
In a time where we've got lockdown and stuff like that, this whole idea of her level of depression. No, I know it's deep, but it's I think it's relevant in the fact that she's going through what's essentially depression, and this could potentially be what leads to the burst of the power, because no matter where you go, whether it's Marvel, whether it's DC, anything, they always say that any power that you have, the strongest tie is to an emotion. It's never intelligence or anything like that. It's always that. So it's the idea of grief, it's the idea of depression, it's the idea of loss, and it's all of that kind of stuff. So I think that build on that was really effective as well. Yeah.
And then Vision says something to her, and I wrote it down because everyone's writing it all over Twitter, and people are gonna have it tattooed on them and everything next week. It says, "What is grief if not love persevering?" Which is very deep and lovely. Yeah. But I think that's I think there was obviously already something there between her and Vision, and I think that's what's put them together and sort of. It's lovely, isn't it? It's lovely, lovely little moment. But that's what's put them together. So Agatha's got most of the story now. She knows how she started, how she got the powers. She's sort of figured out the reason behind it because she knows she's lost Vision, and now she just needs to know how she's done it. So we take another jump, which is kind of the final jump, rerun as Agatha said, and we go to Sword. So it's straight after the blip. And the reason we know it's straight after the blip is because there's massive TVs in there, and it's saying families reunited and stuff. Yeah. So this is clearly like right after Endgame. So it just and we know that this was 9 days before episode 3 or 4 of WandaVision. So we are like less than 2 weeks after Endgame at this stage, I would guess. Yeah. So it just shows how fresh it is. One thing I'll say, which kind of is, well, I was going to go through my theories, but very, very small points, I suppose, is that if this is all happening 2 weeks after Endgame, that means Spider-Man Far From Home happens after this.
Yeah.
So WandaVision is before Far From Home, and the only thing I'll say is Vision is in the in memoriam scene at the start of Far From Home, and this is after that. So is Vision, does Vision make it? No, it's not a spoiler, it's a theory, but does Vision make this? Because there's no sign of Wanda or Vision or any mention of any of it or anything like that. And what we now know is that he's in that in memoriam scene. Yeah. So, and then the thing is, so's Cap. So's Cap. Bringing back to what we said. So when's Falcon and Winter Soldier happening? Is that before Far From Home? And we know Steve's dead?
So, I mean, I've got a theory anyway, but
we're saving it for the theories.
Yeah.
We're saving it for Ridiculous Theory of the Week. Okay, we'll save it for Ridiculous Theory of the Week then. Okay, so we go back to Sword. She's in there. She's demanding. She's upset, obviously. She's demanding Vision's body. Hayward seems to invite her in to see it. And then we go through a whole... And I suppose there's nice... It's not nice because he's dead. And it's a body. But it was just creepy to me because it's like... It was as if he was really enjoying the fact that he was showing her boyfriend's ripped apart body, and he was prodding it. And he was trying to egg her on. It was like, oh, you can't bring him back to. Could you bring him back to life? And he's not even yours.
Like all of that kind of stuff. It's just like you've tried to push that.
And I wonder whether, I got the impression, I mean, we've skimmed through that very quickly, but he was proper trying to egg her on to bring him back to life.
Yeah, and it obviously confirms what we already knew, in that he was portraying a very different story to Monica, Jimmy, and
clearly,
Darcy when he showed that video clip of her stealing the body, because
but we didn't see it. We didn't see her steal the body in the clip. We saw her go down. We saw her drop down, which is what we saw in this episode.
Yeah,
and then all the agents putting guns, and then the cameras go out. Yeah, but we didn't see anything else. So I don't even think he's had to manipulate anything. He's just obviously manipulated the story itself. Yeah. And then when she's down there, he says something. It's like he says you're not powerful. You're the one person who'd be powerful enough to bring him back online. Sorry, I mean bring him back to life. And it's like I think he wants her, or he was hoping that she can turn him back on, basically, and then he can have his weapon back.
Yeah.
I think that's where it was going. And one thing he does say is and obviously you've mentioned that he said he isn't yours, but she tries to feel his presence in his head. Yeah. And she says, I can't feel you, which is it's a callback to
Did you notice that some of his wires did light up though when she did it?
No, I didn't notice that. I didn't know whether it was just reflection.
No, there was actual lights. So there was it was just a couple of wires. It wasn't anything substantial, but it was enough to show
just the power running through.
Yeah.
Or was she subconsciously scanning him?
Maybe.
Or getting a gauge as to what's there and what makes him up. Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, when she says I can't feel you, it's a callback to I just feel you in Infinity War, because when he's saying that there's something going on with the Mind Stone in his head, can you feel it and can you check it? She says I just feel you, and then she walks away. She doesn't steal the body, which I was shocked at, and I did literally right up until then I thought she's coming back. She's going to come back and she's going to steal this body. So she gets in her car and there's a letter in the car. She drives to Westview, and we see Westview. We see normal Westview. We see loads of the residents of Westview that we've seen.
Deborah Jo Rupp sitting having a coffee.
Yeah, I think the notable people that we didn't see were Dottie, so Emma Caulfield. We didn't see her, and we didn't see Norm. I don't think we saw Norm.
We did see Dottie. She was one of the people that slowed down and stared when Monica confronted Wanda on the front lawn.
Yeah, no, we saw her there, but we didn't see her. We didn't see real life Dottie in Westview.
I don't know. I just found it weird that she'd only be in that, like, after being in just one episode. And the same with Deborah, really. Like, they've both just been in one episode, and then they've literally had about half a second screen time for both of them on one.
I wonder whether.
So I don't know whether something's going to come in tomorrow. I mean, next week.
I'm not convinced they will. I mean, I know I suppose the big actresses, if you're into that, which again, little theory, not really to do with the story, but just with the sort of the makeup of the show.
Yeah.
But I think random person on the street who just, I don't think most people would know who Deborah Jo Rupp is and Emma Caulfield are, and the people who know are the people who are heavily into that, or, to this sort of thing. And maybe not with Deborah Jo Rupp, but that you're into your sitcoms and you've watched your TV. You're into your TV, you're into your US TV, and it's probably just they've put them in as the whole thing is a callback to 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s US TV and sitcoms.
Yeah,
and they've probably just put her in there because them in there to sort of as a nod to the fans of those series, and that's why they're in there. So I'm not convinced there'll be any sort of anything bigger than that. We see most of the residents. She drives to the plot 2800. I don't know what the road name is, but we know the house number because we've seen it enough times. And she opens a letter, and it looks like it's the Vision. I would say the Vision's will, and that's what she's reading, which again sort of cements the fact that it's right after he's died. And it looks like he's bought a house, which seems really weird for Vision to buy her a house because he is a robot. I thought that. I mean,
maybe
it's lovely,
just manipulated the deeds through the internet.
Maybe, and it says to grow old in, and that's obviously what sets her off. And it is lovely and it's nice, but that I was like, it does seem a bit weird that the Vision would buy her a house, but he did, and then this is when we find out it's Wanda.
I was going to say, the thing is though, a lot of the conversations that they've had is that she's essentially a nomad. She's got no home.
Yeah,
it's that loneliness. So he's bought the one thing that she's always wanted.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think it was like a nice thing. I don't know.
It was a lovely thing. It was nice. It was a moment. It was definitely a moment.
But I think that's what led to the actual grief. Like I mean, not to the grief, but
that's what tipped her. That's what tipped her over the edge for the
done this
for the
one
explosion.
last amazing thing for it that she's always wanted, but she kind of wanted it with him, and I think it just kind of exasperated everything.
Yeah, it is now. But yeah, and then it all blows up, or Wanda blows up, and I don't think she's doing. It doesn't look like she's doing it consciously. It's just like the grief hits her, and she can't control it. To be fair,
she looked just as shocked when Vision appeared.
Yeah, and it all goes off. So all the, which we now know is chaos energy, or Wanda's energy, or the red energy that we've seen her use for years.
Yeah,
all comes pouring out of her, and it creates builds the house. The hex blows up around Westview, and it just instantly turns everything into 1950s. And then a noticeable thing is the energy or the power that's coming out of her stops being red and it starts being yellow. Yeah. And that's what creates Vision. And I suppose looking back at it now, is it Mind Stone power? Is it a different type of power that creates Vision? But that it's basically saying that, we know, which we knew already, but it's not Vision's body. She's not taken Vision's body and brought him back to life, which is weird. Even though we've seen the dead body of Vision walking around there, I suppose, in that one shot. But she's
this is my question Vision. Now, because
you're going to ask a question I was going to ask. Go on.
About the trace of vibranium that he was following. How is that explained?
I know. Let's save that for questions. Let's save that for questions at the end. Ridiculous theory and questions. But yeah, so that is a point. And then after that's all happened, and she sits down with Vision, and it's basically the start of episode 1. It's the start of the first episode of WandaVision. She's there. We see that she's now in a TV set, and Agatha's clapping, and it's because she's figured it out. She's got everything she needs to know.
I'm also wondering. That the way she claps, is it just random? Because they I don't know, it's not just like a random slow clap. She does some short and then 2 quick ones and then something else, and I was like, what is this referring to?
What, like Morse code or something?
Not Morse code necessarily, but I don't know, like, was it a theme? Was it, I don't know, I just questioned it.
Could be the WandaVision. It could be the WandaVision theme, because I saw something on YouTube, and the theme to every the actual notes that they use in every episode for the intros are all the same, and they are even the same in the Agatha All Along intro.
Oh, really?
It's the same notes, so it could just be something to do with the same. It's the same repetition of notes as well, so it could be a tie back to that. But someone will put it on YouTube. And then she disappears. We hear the kids shouting, which surprised me, because I mean, we still don't know whether the kids are real, what they are, what they're made of, but we hear them shouting outside. She runs out, and we see Agatha Harkness in full costume, which is again really good. I mean, we saw a glimpse of it, didn't we, last episode? Yeah. But at the start of Agatha All Along. But yeah, that looked really cool. She's got the kids with magic ropes around the necks. Just walk backwards.
Dark. Yeah.
Yeah, but walk backwards. They're like trying to pull forwards, and she's pulling them around the neck. It's like, step back. Tommy's got super speed. Just run the other way really quick. It's I don't know. It just seemed a bit. Yeah. Just seemed a bit. I was a bit like, why aren't they running? And then she breaks down her evaluation, should we say, of what she's seen so far. She says you're supposed to be a myth. It's chaos magic. That if you're using chaos magic, that makes you the Scarlet Witch. Which again is sort of which I think is implying that you've been this prophecy, the one witch all along. We picked up, you had those power, you had that witch power when you were a kid, and you've stopped the bomb. It wasn't faulty. You've stopped the bomb going off for 2 days, which I think I agree with. I think that's where it's going, but this is where ridiculous theory of the week comes in. And then actually, I don't think it's ridiculous. I don't think it'll be a ridiculous one this week. And then we have the post-credit scene. So we had another post-credit scene. I'm starting to doubt now whether all the other episodes have had post-credit scenes, because we've had 2 in a row. I might have to go back and watch, but I don't think they have.
Felt like there was one other one, because I felt like I'd seen something at some point, and then I tried to wait for the next one. and then there was nothing. So I don't know. So I feel like I need to
I'll have to
investigate
go back and check that.
and double check.
But we get it. We get a post-credit scene. So it's Hayward, and he's talking about the launch.
Drone.
And he just says we're ready for launch, which is what he talked about last episode, didn't he? He says we're nearly ready for launch. Yeah. And we see the drone. Yeah, spot on. And he says that the only way we've pulled it apart and rebuilt this thing 1 billion times, and all along we just had to go to the source for the power. We've tried loads of different power methods, and it looks like they're using the chaos magic from the drone that she threw to power white vision, which is not a different vision. It's vision, isn't it? They've rebuilt him, and they've used the power, and they've put him together quick, haven't they? Considering that, like we 2 days ago they didn't seem to think they could rebuild him, but so they've put him together. Whether we'll get into theories, but he is in the comics. In the comics, is a white version of Vision. It's not an alternate Vision or anything like that. It's after Vision. I think after Vision dies, he gets put back together, and they haven't got the hero that they use to give him the personality, that they copy the personality from, doesn't want to do it again. So he's just a robot. He's got all the powers of Vision, and he's good. He acts on the side of good, I think, in the comics, but he's not got a personality, and it forces him and Wanda, who are together at that point in the comics, to separate, and it ruins the marriage. And I think eventually he sort of gets his personality back, and he grows back as a personality, but he's not. So I suppose it could go down the route of he ends up being Vision, and we end up with Vision back in the MCU, and he slowly gets his personality back and learns, falls in love with Wanda again. Or it could be something completely different, which we'll go out about in our theories and questions. But in general, a good episode. I think once we got to that after credit scene, I knew what was coming at the end of that after credit scene, and I was a bit disappointed it wasn't something bigger. But it was good. It was still a really good episode, and it answers all the questions. But I suppose the biggest question I've got is how the hell are we going to wrap this all up in 40 minutes?
But that's what I was thinking. Like, how are we doing this all in one episode now? Because you've also got to take into consideration that we've not had Darcy, Monica, and Jimmy at all.
Yeah,
in this
we've not had
episode.
them at all.
They
and
were not
she's in
it
there.
Whatsoever. Yeah, and Darcy's in there.
She's
with
in
them.
there.
So
Darcy's in there. Vision's in there still.
Yeah.
He's on his way to the house,
And
so
we didn't
I imagine
see
he's
that
going to
Vision
roll up
at
any
all.
second. No,
So-
he's going to roll up any second. Monica, we saw her last time. We saw her. She was getting greeted by Pietro at the basement door. So it's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Where are they going to
Well,
be?
this is the thing. So at the beginning, when she said about Pietro, she said, "Well, I'm his eyes and his ears." So when he's found Monica at the end, it's essentially
it's Agatha.
That's found Monica. So I don't know what's happening there just yet.
Okay.
But shall I go for my theory first?
Go on, let's go for a theory. Let's go through theories. I mean, I've got one big theory, so we'll do the ridiculous. We'll save that for ridiculous theory of the week. But go on, what's your theory first?
Okay, so it kind of comes in two parts. So first of all, I think potentially that the Vision from the comic books that we've talked about, the White Vision. I've got a funny. I still believe in some sense that could be Ultron. So it was his original body. So is it going to be Ultron finally getting the body that he'd been trying to get from Age of Ultron, and he's been controlling Hayward with sword and everything, and that's why that side of things been happening. So I do think that could still potentially be a thing.
I'm not convinced he's been I mean, I think Hayward's as sketchy as anything, and I think he's been trying. I do think he was trying to prod Wanda to bring him back to life or bring him back online. But I'm not convinced he's working for Ultron or anything like that. But I think you're 100% right. I mean, we had the Ultron theory last week. I think that Hayward's stupid enough to think, oh, I've built myself my own private Avenger who I can use when I want. Yeah. But I would not be surprised if it was if because the Mind Stone's now gone. Yeah. Ultron's still in there. And because the personality's not there anymore, Ultron's the only thing left in that body.
And then following from that, I obviously think that there's going to be a big thing. I reckon that could mean, with Ultron being such a big... I mean, it took the Avengers last time to take him down together. So I don't know whether Wanda now with some more realised power and Agatha will have to work together to...
I think if it's Ultron... I think if it's Ultron, I mean, I think, to be fair, I think we're at the point now where Wanda could pretty much have anybody. do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, whether she needs to sort of harness that power more or not. Yeah. But she's 100% the most powerful thing in the MCU.
Yeah. Well, I then think that we are gonna get the return of Cap. I think that when
give her the Mind Stone.
I do think he's going to give her the Mind Stone. I think that when he's gone back to the timelines and stuff, I reckon that he's gone to give Wanda that, because the other reason, and it's a bit soppy, and apologies, but because of the fact that he gets to have Peggy, and he knows how much of a loss this is for Wanda, I think he's going to try and give her the Mind Stone so that she can get her vision back.
Yeah. But where else? Because the only other place he could put it would be in 2012 Avengers, at the end of Avengers.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that Wanda would have never got her powers. Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised. It's just a branch timeline.
The only reason I think this is because they made a big thing about if all the stones don't go back into the right place, the lines of reality will split. Now, we already know that with the Loki series, it looks like it's going down the route of where did Loki go after he took the Tesseract again, from the other line. So I think that leaves it open for the other reality timelines to have been split, which would mean that Captain America could get away with dropping the Mind Stone with Wanda.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be awesome, because I said there's been rumours that he's coming back anyway, hasn't there? So that even if that was his only little nod, just pop back and drop the Mind Stone off, and then we get normal Vision again. Yeah, that would be good. Okay, so I've got a question first. Okay. So my question, which we touched on already, about like Pietro, the whole Pietro thing. Like, is he real? Is he fake? Is he the multiverse or something like that?
Yeah.
But I think he's got, if they're not going down the multiverse route, which we know we've got to at some point, because we're hoping Spider-Man 3 is going to take us down that route, and we know Doctor Strange is going to go down that road.
Yeah.
But if he's not that, because it's still not been answered, who is under witness protection?
Oh, God,
we still don't know who the witness is. So is it Pietro? And is he going to have more to do with it? But is that who he is? Because it could be Dottie, which is why we didn't see Dottie, because she's probably the most, when we had the flashback to Westview, she's probably the most prominent character who we didn't see. Do you know what I mean? Who we've seen all the way through. But so it could be her, but I do wonder whether the real person Pietro is playing, if it isn't Pietro from an alternate universe, is the witness on the witness protection. And then let's do ridiculous theory of the week. So I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it'd be ridiculous if it wasn't true. So something I didn't not like, but I found it, and I don't want to use. I hate using this word, but a bit silly, if I'm honest, is this whole idea, which I think was sort of confirmed at the end, and it was drip fed through the whole episode, that Wanda is a witch and she's got magic powers, and she is a witch, and the time stone, the Mind Stone's awoken those powers, which is obviously what Agatha says all the way through, and she goes through through the whole thing, and she says at the end, "You're the myth. You're this chosen one. You've prophesized and stuff like that. You are the Scarlet Witch," and that's obviously confirming that she has got witches' powers, and she did have witches' powers when she's a kid. And that's why when they talk, that's why she's one of the only people who survived getting tested on by the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
But Pietro did as well. Yeah, so Pietro did as well, and he's not a witch.
Powers, he's
not a witch. Okay, so I don't think she's a witch in that she's the Scarlet Witch, and it's probably something to do with the prophecy and stuff like that. And whether we get this now, like next episode, or whether this is sort of left and put in the back pocket, like you said before, for 5 years, she's not a witch. She's a mutant. She's got to be a mutant, and Pietro's a mutant as well, and that's how they survived, and that's what the underlying power is, and that's why Pietro survived the Mind Stone. They've got, and that, to be fair, that's where I thought we would go. As soon as she set at the very, very start of that set of that whole thing, when she was when she says, "Oh, how did you're safe as a pet, safe as kittens under all those rocks, and you're absolutely fine." I was like, she's a mutant. We're going down the route. She's a mutant, and that's how they've survived it somehow. And then it sort of completely went away from that, and it was like, no, you're a witch, and you're this all powerful prophesized witch. But I think that's a red herring. I think they've got that'd be the perfect. They've got two perfect opportunities now to get mutants into the MCU. Yeah, she's been a mutant all along. Yeah, which would probably go down the route of her mum and dad aren't her real mum and dad, because they're not. If she's a mutant, she's she's Eric Lynch's daughter. Or they could go down the route of everybody in Westview, is like we said last week, is a mutant because it changes their DNA when it hit them, when the hex hit them. Yeah. But that's my theory, and it's not necessarily a theory. It's probably where I think they should go. But I think they should go down the route of her being a mutant, and Pietro is a mutant as well, because it wouldn't explain if she was a witch why Pietro then got super speed. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So that's my ridiculous theory, but not so ridiculous theory of the week. What do you reckon? Do you reckon I'm right?
I don't know. It just could go so many ways and be feasible.
I just don't know how we're gonna get this all done in one episode. Yeah, unless it's a feature length.
I was gonna say who's to say that it is. It might fall into something else. It might lead to something else. We don't know.
It could just lead. We could end up on a massive cliffhanger, which wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. And this whole story doesn't get picked up until Doctor Strange. But then there's another thing, something that you picked up on, which is a question that I had as well, and you mentioned it before, is how Tyler Hayward's tracking Vision. Yeah. If he's not real and he's just completely been manifested. How is
the trace of vibranium if he was?
So so it's got to be, in my opinion, because we know it. They didn't just say Hayward's tracking Vision, because we could have come up with some really random way of tracking Vision. Yeah. Darcy specifically says he's tracking the decay signature of vibranium. Yeah. And it's Vision, obviously, that she's tracking. So she's either, somebody else put this on Twitter as well, she's either created Vision, she's just that powerful that she's created something out of nothing, and she's created a new version of Robot Vision who's now alive. Yeah. Who can only exist within the hex, which is going to be very, very sad at the end, because she's going to have to let everybody out of the hex, which is going to mean that Vision's going to have to say, let me disappear, I'm dead anyway. Yeah. Or she's pulled a Vision from another reality, and she's not created him,
which could explain the change in
multiverse.
Colour.
What the way he looked, his actual colour?
No. The
change of colour of the power. Yeah, could be. Yeah. Well,
because
there's one other thing. There's one other thing that I've noticed all the way through this, and
are you going to say that he's a different colour?
No, he's not a different colour. No, he's not. No. I know what you're saying though, but no, and it's a tiny, tiny little thing, and it's and I've only picked up on the fact that it's in my opinion. I mean, I might be wrong, but that it's different in this latest episode. So if you go and watch Civil War and you watch every movie that Vision's been in so far, if you look at Vision's eyes, they're not human eyes. So the white of Vision's eyes aren't white. The white of Vision's eyes are like yellow with like little robotic. They look like robot's eyes. They look like you're trying to take a human's eye and make it look robotic. Okay. Yeah. And in WandaVision, all the way through, they haven't been. They're just white eyes. They're just normal human. Paul Bettany's eyes. They're just normal eyes. And I put that down to, it's a TV series. It's not a movie. It's probably got a lower budget. No one will notice. But when he sat down with her in the flashback to the Avengers compound, he had the robotic eyes.
Do you know, I didn't even get on
100%. I'm 99% certain he had the robotic eyes. I might be wrong. Somebody tell me on Twitter if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain he had the robotic eyes. Yeah. And if he did, that's a conscious step that they've taken to not give him those robotic eyes in the series for the rest of the series, which obviously identifies that he's not the normal Vision. So is it just she's remade him and she's not gone into that much detail because she's produced him and she's not that detailed in producing this false Vision, or is it that he's a slightly different Vision from a different reality?
Could be like the David Tennant in Doctor Who.
Could be. Oh, we're getting into a massive wormhole if we start talking about Doctor Who. I don't watch Doctor Who. You do. But yeah. So good episode. And yeah, one more episode to go.
I'm really excited.
And they're gonna have to squeeze a lot into it. So we've somehow managed to get to about where we got with the last two episodes. We're timing this really well. We're getting like an hour and 40 minutes here, which is probably an hour and 38 minutes more than most people want to listen to us. But we've timed it quite well. So we'll wrap it up. So hopefully you enjoyed the episode 3. If you stuck around for 3 episodes, thank you very much. As we've already said a couple of times, you can interact with us, shall we say, on Twitter. So we're on Twitter at Superhero Thing. We're on Facebook. Anthony started a Facebook group this week, which we're both in. So go on there, talk to us, ask us any questions. If you've got any theories or there's anything you want to ask us for like the next episode or what we think of the theory or anything like that, go on there and ask us, and we'll bring we'll mention you on the podcast and we'll bring it up. And then also if you go on the Anchor website, who distribute the podcast, which is I think the main link that we put on the Facebook page and the Twitter page, then you can leave us a message on there. You can literally leave us a recorded message, and if you do, I'll have to somehow figure out how to put that in the podcast, but I will put it in the podcast. So I'll spend the week trying to figure that out as well. Thanks very much for listening, and next week we'll go through the news again, and I'll try and surprise Anthony with the news as well. We'll see if Anthony thinks it's been a slow news week, and I would imagine it'll probably be a slightly longer episode because there's probably going to be a lot to talk about in Wandavision. But yeah, that's it from me. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you later.
Say bye. See you later. Bye.
Bye.